Make no mistake, writing is difficult. It's hard work. You might spend hours working on a project only to trash it, to throw it away, and the only profit you've gained from the story is perhaps the writing experience and maybe improving your skills a little bit. Writing demands long hours of work. It demands editing and re-editing. Writing takes away valuable time that you might be doing something else. So why write at all? Why would a person want to sacrifice an hour or more a day and isolate themselves and work on a writing project? In many ways, if you look at it objectively, it doesn't make sense for someone to isolate themselves for several hours to work on a project that maybe only a few people will even read. So why write at all? Well, I think there's several answers to that. The most obvious is writing helps us to process what we're thinking. Writing helps us to process that which is inside of us. For the writer, writing helps them to make sense of the world because the world really doesn't make sense, and we sometimes look to writing for hope. Writing helps us express ourselves. Writing is educational. Writing helps us to develop. It isn't uncommon for someone to use writing as a means of therapy. I say that writing connects us to our own insights and helps us to develop and realize a deeper level of inner guidance. Writing gives ownership. It means owning up to something. It means accepting responsibility. And at times I need to ask myself what I believe about things. Writing also works somewhat like faith, because our own words are the brick and mortar of the dreams that we want to realize. Think about that. Writing is a friend whose shoulder we can cry on, a confidant who listens and helps us to sort things out. Sometimes I have to pause and clear out the wreckage of my mind before I can move forward. And I think just as walking exercises the body to produce that flow of endorphins and good feelings, writing seems to alter the chemical flow of the mind itself. So I guess we could say writing many times gives purpose to a rudderless day. Because as we become honest on the page about our likes and dislikes, about our hopes and dreams, then we become willing to be clear and the murk of our life begins to settle. If we put it on the page, then it's only a matter of time until we put it in practice. But if you're here listening to this lecture, you probably feel a drawing to write as a ministry. From the scriptures, we learn that there's a call to preach, but many feel like that God indeed calls them to write as a writing ministry. Remove the writing ministry of Apostle Paul alone from the New Testament, and there'd be a tremendous void. That isn't to say that any of us will write at the same level as Apostle Paul. But if our writing ministers to one or two people or a handful, then we've helped someone. Then our writing has purpose. What I like about writing is that it gives you time to develop the way you want to say what you want to say. You're not put on the spot and then what you say comes out wrong and you can't take it back. But writing gives you that time. And probably most importantly, writing allows you to minister to people that you'll never meet. A simple devotional or article can easily reach out to more people than you will ever meet in your lifetime. Writing will outlive you. Long after the author has left this world, his or her writing can still live on to minister and to help other people. When you write, you also help others to make sense of the world. Because as you know, life is often frustrating. It's illogical and even chaotic at times. And we all return to stories for meaning and structure. We look for universal values because we want to know how to lead our lives, how to love one another, how to treat one another. We want to know how to triumph over obstacles. And the author writes to give those people hope. Even though what you write is fiction, people still manage to find reality in it. So in many ways, storytelling is this creative demonstration of truth. Storytelling is basically a philosophical pursuit wherein we explore what is true and what's false. I believe that every complete story is an analogy to the human mind trying to deal with an inequity. Every good story has a problem that needs a solution, and the story shows the reader how to deal with that problem, that inequity. For those of us who feel called to write, I feel that we'll be held responsible at the judgment for the people who are hurting, which we could have helped, but we didn't, because we didn't write what God laid on our heart. I cannot stress too much that writing is learned. Very few, if anyone, is born with a talent or gift to write. It's a learned skill, and that gives many of us hope because we can learn how to write. Also, keep in mind that writers do not necessarily have to understand the rules of writing to be able to write successfully. But the more rules you do understand, the better your chances of being a successful writer. And last of all, I want to add that sometimes it's frustrating in writing because you feel like you have nothing new. But we have to accept that because there is nothing new. Someone said that there are only 3 plots: man against man, man against himself, man against God. Then someone else come along and says, well, that's true, but really you could divide them up into 7 plots. And then someone else come along and said, in reality, they could be divided up into 36 plots. All of them are probably true, but my point is that there are only so many stories that we can tell. And so many stories will be told over and over, and we like those stories. We come back to them again and again because we find meaning in life from those stories. That's why Jesus used stories as a large part of his teaching ministry. Let's take the Shakespeare story, Romeo and Juliet, for an example. That idea didn't originate with Shakespeare. He took the idea from someone else and done it better. But since Shakespeare, the idea has been done over and over in different ways. Instead of, we can't be in love because my family hates your family, someone wrote a story about, we can't be in love because my gang is against your gang. Or we can't have love because my church is against your church. My religion against your religion. My country against your country. And it's the same story, but we've just told it a little differently. So there's really no new stories. We just keep telling these same old stories in a little different manner, and we're attracted to those stories because we love them. And we make sense and meaning out of life in those stories. So let me close with this. If you feel like God is calling you to write, if you were put on earth to be a painter, or if you were meant to cure cancer or write a symphony and you don't do it, then understand that you're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting everyone else because you're depriving us of the gift that God has given to you. I believe that neglect is shaming the angels who watch over you and spiting the Almighty who's given you the gift. Because only you, with your unique gifts that God has given you, whatever they are, you are put here on earth for the sole purpose of nudging humanity maybe 1 millimeter farther along on their path toward God. So don't cheat others out of what you can contribute. Give us what you've got. Write what you can. Don't compare yourself to others. Be who you are. Constantly try to improve. Never be satisfied with good enough. Never think that you've arrived. Some stories you write will just be for the experience, for the learning. But we have to write to practice. You can't wait for inspiration. You can't wait till you feel like writing. We never question the football team who practices a lot. Yet in writing, we wait for time to practice our craft. So don't cheat the world out of what God has given you, because there's no one like you. You are unique, and only you can write your stories, no one else.